Alright everybody, hello and welcome to Disney Lorcana, a how to play in-depth guide by the creator of the Collectors Guild. It's me, Leo! I don't know if I stated that in my last video, but we're just gonna assume that I stated it. So if it works, it works. But as I said before, this is a in-depth guide how to play. Unlike my last video, that was a quick guide. This one is going to be an in-depth guide. I will be going into further depths, just like, you know, venturing into the Inklands. But let's go ahead and move on. Alright, so first things first, we have the table of contents. First, we have the game. Did I just say contents? Like I just said contents. I meant contents, but we have the table of contents. First, you got the game setup, then we got the beginning phase. Two things that we did go through in my last video, but I will be going over them again in a little bit more detail. And after those two, we have the main bulk, the main portion of the game, you know, that part, the meat of the game. We have the main phase that is made up of playing cards, using character abilities, and using item abilities, and questing and challenging. You know, and I'm reading the screen, and the crazy thing is I still messed that up, but it's okay, because one take is all it takes. What can I say? All right, so first things first, we do have the game set up. Now, in order to set up a game, it is very important that you do these four things. You shuffle your 60 card deck. As stated in the last video, you will have a deck of 60 cards. I am not 100% sure if you can go less than 60, but in all honesty, with what I know now, and this being my first version of this in-depth guide, you should probably go ahead and do 60 cards. I don't believe you would want anything less. With the games I've played so far, 60 cards is perfect. After that, you're going to want to have your lore counter set to 0. Now, whether your lore counter is going to be on your game mat or your game board, or you're going to use some dice, you know, a 20-sided dice or a 40-sided dice. They make all-sided dice these days. You're probably going to want one, and it's probably going to need to be set on 0. Unless you're using a dice, then, you know, it's just not there, or just treat it like, you know, the one's not there. And then when you get your lore, you know, then you increase it from there. There's a lot of there's and here's. But yeah, have your lore counter set to 0 one way or another. Next, you're going to place your deck and draw 7 cards. Now, if you need to alter your hand, you alter your hand. As far as from what I know, on the day of April 7th, 2024, you are going to want to have 7 cards. And if you want to get rid of some cards, you can. The mulligans for this game is very nice. If you just need to put back a couple cards, you put back a couple cards. If you need to put back your whole hand, you put back your whole hand. But I'm not going to go into too many details on how to mulligan. It really just does depend on the game. And for this game, I've heard a couple things. I've seen a couple things. So in all honesty, if you're not paying competitively, do what you need to do. Lastly, you're going to need to determine who goes first. Now, there are a lot of ways that you can determine who goes first. You can either do a nice game of rock, paper, scissors. You can roll the dice, go high or low, you know, hit you with the fight, you know. Just see who hits the hardest, you know, play a nice game of punchies. Whatever you got to do to determine who's going to go first. Me, I never really care whether or not I go first or second. Occasionally I do, but it really just depends on the deck I'm playing. And with the deck that I'm playing lately, whether I go first or second, it doesn't really matter because I like to stall. So if you want me to go second, let me go second. But if you want me to go first, it literally does not make a difference to me. All right, next we're going to talk about the beginning phase. Now, the beginning phase, at the beginning of the beginning phase, you need to ready your cards. Now, this won't really do any good for anyone on their first turn at all, especially if you don't have anything on the board. If you have nothing on the board, there's nothing to ready. So this really just applies to turn 3 and onwards. But next, you have to set. At the start of your turn, effects start to take place again. This doesn't really take place at all when there's nothing on the board. So this really is just for turn 3 and on. After that, you actually draw a card. Now this is very important. When you draw a card, you do add to your hand. But the crazy thing is, like other card games, if you are the turn 1 player, you do not draw a card. This is a nice little way to keep things balanced, and I greatly appreciate it. Hope it stays that way forever, because that turn 1, it can do a lot of damage. And I'm noticing these sapphire decks, man, I don't ever want to let a sapphire deck go first. They ramp too quickly. But we'll talk about that in another video. Next, we have the main phase. One of the most important parts of the main phase is being able to play your cards. In order to play your cards, though, you do have to have ink. Now, in order to have ink, you got a nice little thing in the top left corner of the card where the cost is that tells you whether or not this card is inkable. If the card is inkable, you show the card off and show that it can be thrown into your inkwell. Once you throw this into your inkwell, you got some ink to play your cards. Now, there are some decks that like to have a lot of fodder. Mine, I have a couple fodders in my deck. It used to be Flounder. Now it's honestly the majority of my deck is really inkable, so it works out one way or another. Everything in my deck is really fodder, but if I had to choose one card that I have as fodder, it's probably going to be my magic brooms in general. The only ones that can't be used in the ink are just my dancing duster and my swift cleaner. The rest of my magic brooms, they can be used as fodder. But after you get your cards into the inkwell, we need to talk about playing cards. Now, in order to play cards, you are going to tap, which is what this nice little icon to the left here is, the amount of ink the card requires to play. So in this case, the Magic Broom Bucket Brigade, it costs 2. If you don't have if you don't have enough ink to play this card, you won't be able to play it. If you do, you're gonna tap those 2 inks in order to get this Magic Broom out. Now, playing these character cards, the turn a character card is played, they cannot take action. I don't know, I can't believe I put that. I don't know why I put that. I'd edit this out, but I gotta learn, I gotta learn. I'm going off of no script and just reading a screen here. But a character card cannot take action the turn they are played. Now, there are some abilities like Rush that allow cards to challenge a character the turn they're played. So if you've played games like Magic, or really just Magic is the only thing that comes to mind, Rush takes effect immediately. As soon as that card hits the board, it can attack or it can challenge. But alongside the Rush ability, just because it can challenge does not mean it can quest yet. As of right now, I have not seen a card that can quest the turn they are played, which is probably for the better, because again, those turn ones and that Sapphire, I wouldn't be able to handle that, and neither will you. Now, playing items, that's another one we should talk about. Items have been a lot of fun lately. I literally just built a deck with just a plethora of items. But items, unlike character cards, they can be used the turn that they are played. Items tend to stay in play until they are banished. I have not seen any items. If there are, I could be wrong, I'm not entirely sure. But this is just me going off of a quick glance of deck building and whatnot. But most items that I have seen, the only thing you have to do in order to use it is get it on the board and read what the card says. If the card tells you need to tap in order to use it, then you tap. If the card says something needs to happen in order for it to take effect, then it'll take effect when that particular scenario happens. But like this binding contract here, in order to use it, first, top left corner, you got to pay 4 ink in order to even place it on the board. Once you are able to get it on the board, if you wanted to, you could tap the card then and there. For all eternity, you tap this card and tap one of your characters. Then, and only then, you can exert chosen character, whether that's your character or one of your opposing characters. Either way, this card itself has 2 tasks that must be done in order for you to use the ability of this card. As I said before, item cards, they tend to stay on the field. Some item cards you do have to tap in order to use them. Other item cards you have to banish them in order to use them. But that's neither here or there. One way or another, item cards are awesome. They're the bomb diggity. Now next we have locations. In order to play a location, it's the same as any other card. You just got to pay attention to the ink cost, which in this case is the top right corner from my current perspective. But when you draw the card, it's still going to be the top left. Now, after a location is played, at the start of every turn, you gain lore according to the lore value of the location. So in this case, if you play the Bayou, you don't gain any lore the turn you play it, but the next following turn, when it circles back around to you, during that beginning phase is when you gain your passive lore. And I do now realize I should have probably put that in the beginning, but I was going off of a different rule sheet at the time, so you get what you get. This isn't my best, but this isn't my worst neither. You learn, I learn. We're all learning here. But locations can use their abilities the same turn they are played, just like items can. And for the Bayou, the Mysterious Swamp, it costs 1 ink. You pay that 1 ink. And then whenever a character quests while here, you may draw a card, then choose and discard a card. Now, another interesting thing about the Bayou, the Mysterious Swamp here, is these nice little digits we have on them. So we do have that one in, again, my perspective, the top right corner. That's the cost in order to play the card. Next, we have the actual cost to move. To the left of the name is how much ink it costs to actually move a character there. So whether you play a character fresh on the board or you already have a character on the board, no matter what, in terms of just basic cards and not what a card's ability is, you pay 1 ink in order to move a character here. Now, funny thing is, locations, and I'll probably go over this at some point, locations can be attacked. It's a little weird, but think of it like deforestation. You know, you can still wipe the board of a location, and locations do have a toughness value. In this case, the Bayou Mysterious Swamp's toughness value is 3. So once you attack this location and you get rid of everything you see on that location, actually I take that back, it's actually funny, you know, I had a really good joke but immediately lost it. This is probably why people have scripts. But you deal 3 damage to this location, you knock that location out. Now this only knocks out the location from what I know as of right now. Again, the date is April 7th, 2024. But as of right now, you take out a location, you only take out the location. You do not take out the characters in that location. Once the location is banished, the only thing that's left is going to be those cards on the board, and from what I've seen, there aren't any cards that go with the location. So do keep that in mind when you're building your decks and you are putting locations in there. You do not have to worry about a location being just wiped off the board and it's sweeping the rest of what's there. Next, let's talk about some action cards. Now, action cards, a lot of fun. One thing I'm not the biggest fan of right now with action cards is you can't play them on your opponent's turn, which I guess is okay for the most part. From my current experience, I am noticing that, you know, if someone could play a card on their turn while I'm doing what I'm doing, they can completely mess up the whole game, and then the game is just slow, and then I get bored, and it's just like, I don't really want to do this anymore. But luckily for us and those at Ravensburger, they thought, hey, you can only play action cards on your turn, which is awesome. But like items and like locations, action cards take effect immediately when they hit the board. Immediately. And then they're discarded. So in this case, I'm stuck a 1 cost amethyst card right here. Chosen exerted character can't ready at the start of their next turn. Now this is an awesome card. I love this card with a passion. Granted, again, I do wish I could use this card on my opponent's turn, but with the way that it's worded, it still works out really well. That means on my turn, if I see a card like Aladdin and I know if that card swings and I'm gonna lose 2 lore, or it quests and I'm gonna lose 2 lore, or yeah, I believe it quests and I'm gonna lose 2 lore. If I use I'm stuck, I can get that character stuck, literally like the card says, and keep him from being able to restand on the next beginning phase. Sorry, I almost said charge phase. I play a lot of card games. At some point I'll probably get a script, but who knows? This is just an in-depth guide, so second video, I think I'm doing pretty good. You can't see me, but I'm doing a lot of smiling. But as I was saying, this is a really good card. Action cards, I have been noticing, have been way better than I thought they were going to be, especially since you can only play them on your turn. If it was possible to play cards on your opponent's turns, I can see where that would start to become a problem. I myself do not want to be interrupted by a card like this, so it is probably for the better that you can only play action cards on your turn. Next, we have action songs. No, action songs are just like action cards, except there is a nice little twist on it. If you do see song on an action card, just like it says here for Friends on the Other Side, which, my golly, I love this song so much. You can actually exert a character with the same cost or higher of the card that you are playing for free without having to spend any ink. So in this case, for friends on the other side, when you play this card for 3 ink, instead of tapping 3 ink, you can tap, say, a 4-cost Mickey Mouse Wayward Sorcerer. You tap that card, you play this card for free, and you draw 2 cards. Now there is a downside to doing this. If you are not smart about the way that you know, sacrifice some of your characters, because I'm gonna be 100% honest with you, it can turn into a sacrifice. You do open up your character to be attacked. So do with that as you please. As I've stated before, I've seen Sapphire do some pretty funny things that I haven't been the most happy with, but you know, you make do with what you have. Unlike regular actions though, as I stated before, they can be cast for free by exerting characters with equal or greater cost. If you do try to do this with a character of less cost, just know you can't do it. It just doesn't work. That's just against the rules. So have fun with that. All right, next we have using character abilities. Now this is also very important. This is one of the most important parts of the game. You see, decks are mostly comprised of characters. So it would be a shame if characters themselves could only do 2 things, like questing and challenging. So some character cards, most character cards, do have character abilities. And you have 2 types of abilities. You have action abilities and you have passive abilities. Now your action, or in other words, active abilities, require you to activate them. These abilities are abilities that cannot be used the same turn that they are played, especially since most active abilities require you to spend ink or tap the card. Just like most other card games, you cannot use their abilities on the turn that they are played unless the card specifies otherwise. Now, passive abilities are awesome. As soon as they hit the board, they are active. Sometimes they do require a certain scenario to take place, like Bodyguard. In order to use Bodyguard, the card has to be tapped already. But at the same time, it can interplay tap. So it works out quite nicely. And in this case, Lithos Rock Titan, a 4-cost steel card, its passive ability is resist plus 2, and its active ability is stone skin. Oh, got a little tongue twisted there. Whoops. It's stone skin. Tap this card, chosen character gains resist plus 2 this turn, which is, you know, it's just awesome, because man, steel be coming in clutch. It be coming in clutch. You pair that with a nice little amber deck, you know, beef up your cards and have resist. Man, that's a great combination. All right, next we have the act of using action or active abilities. In order to use a card like this, and in a lot of cases, I do believe active abilities, you know, you do gotta do a little something. Like I said, you do need to pay something. Battle Plans requires you to tap this card, then draw a card, then choose and discard a card. This is awesome. I love this so much. I love the way this works with a passion. Granted, I've played other card games where, you know, Summoning Sickness, you can't activate the abilities. But even in this game, I am starting to realize, as I've matured over the years, it's probably best that you cannot use abilities right away. That can definitely give you an advantage like no other. That is why I'm glad we got abilities like Rush, which are passive abilities, and then you have these action or active abilities that require you to at least wait 1 turn to where the ink is dry, and then you can go ahead and tell that character to move the way you need it to move. And on the other hand, your passive abilities. Passive abilities, they're active, as I stated, as soon as the character is played. So again, in this case, Tiana Celebrating Princess, her passive ability is resist plus 2. Some abilities do take effect after conditions are met, such as what you give is what you get. While this character is exerted and you have no cards in your hand, opponents can't play actions. So this, and from the way I see it, you can say it is a passive ability just because it can be activated, you know, once the conditions are met. On the other hand, you can say that this would be an active ability just because if this card, say for instance, you played it and you could tap it immediately, whether you quest or challenge, it doesn't matter, it survives. and you have no cards in your hand, it activates on its own. So depending on how you look at it, some abilities can come off as passive, other abilities can come off as active. Just know that most active abilities do require you to pay something, whereas a lot of your passive abilities, they're already there, you know. Once you put it on the board, it's there. Next, we have using item abilities. Like characters, items can have passive and action or active abilities. In this case, map of treasure planet, key to the portal, you tap, you pay 1 less ink for the next location you play this turn. On the other end, we have show the way. You pay 1 less ink to move your character to a location. These two I would consider active, or the first one I would consider an active ability, where the next one I would definitely consider a passive ability, because once it's already on the field, this card is already telling you that you may pay 1 less. Whereas if you try to use the active ability key to the portal, you actively have to pay in order to use it. But again, unlike character cards, items can be used the turn they're played, so you do not have to wait for the ink to dry on these. You get the card out, you can use their abilities just like that. All right, next let's talk about questing. Now this is the next most important thing when it comes to playing this game. You know, you got your characters that you gotta play in order to quest in general. Same with your locations. If you can get a location on the board, great. You know, you get passive lore. If you can't, it's not the end of the world. But questing is going to be your next best way to obtain lore. Questing is one of the main ways that you gain lore, and a character cannot quest on the turn they are played. I have not seen a card that says this is possible otherwise, but maybe at some point in the future it will be. And if that does happen, obviously you're going to get a 2.0 of this. Plus, you know, it's going to be a little more scripted. And, you know, I'm not going to talk like this too often, but I might talk like this because talking like this is fun. So we'll see. But in order to quest, you declare and you tap or exert the chosen character. Excuse my language, I do prefer to say tap. Exert is a really long word in my opinion, you know, especially when you could just say a 3-letter word like tap. Tap is what you say in most other card games, but that's neither here nor there. You know, I might explain it in another video. I'm not too sure yet. I'm still a little new to everything. But for instance, when you quest with this card, Magic Broom the Big Sweeper quests for 1 lore. So when you want to quest, do know that once you exert this card, it is open to attack. Alright, next you have challenging. Challenging is the main way to stop your opponent from gaining lore. Characters cannot challenge the turn they are played though. Just like questing, the ink has to dry in order for these characters to move. To challenge, you declare and then you exert chosen character. And once you exert chosen character, either before or after, I'm a casual player, so I like to do after or before. Really, it just depends on who I'm playing. But declare who you're attacking. You're going to declare who you're attacking with and who you're going against. And I'm sorry if I keep saying attacking, it's just the most common term for me. But you're going to declare who you're using a challenge and who you're challenging against. Exert your card, and then they go to board or battle. Or in this case, I don't know what Disney would want me to say. You know, I don't want it to come off too violent. Now, the way challenging works is a character can only challenge other exerted characters unless a card specifies otherwise. In a challenge, damage is done simultaneously. Unlike some other card games, you do have cards that could say, for instance, in Magic, you have a card with First Strike, or yeah, Magic is honestly the first one that comes to mind. So what First Strike means is not important because none of the cards here have First Strike. Just know that First Strike is a thing, and maybe one day I might go over that. But for now, we're only talking Lorcana. But when a character is defeated in a challenge, it is banished and sent to the discard pile, or the banished zone, or you know, maybe they'll name it something cooler. But in this case, we have Magic Broom attacking almost said Diabolo. Sorry, watched the Maleficent movie, and that movie was awesome. But Diablo. What do we have here? We got a, you know, Magic Broom that has 1 attack, you know, 5 toughness, versus a Diablo that has 2 attack, 1 toughness. That's clear as day. Magic Broom is gonna win all day, every day. But Magic Broom does take damage. Now, a character that survives battle retains the damage until removed from the play area, or they are healed. And as of right now, healing is not the only thing that cards can do. There are some cards that can move damage from one card to another, but damage is tracked by damage counters that are placed on the card after challenging. Now for damage counters, I've been using dice, I've been using the little cardboard cutouts. You could use a digital damage tracker, but honestly, I like being able to physically feel something in my hand. So based on that last battle though, Diablo did 1 damage to Magic Broom. So whether whether Magic Broom is exerted or not, Magic Broom will retain that 1 damage. And once he gets to 5 damage, then Magic Broom will be taken off the board. Now, winning. Woo, winning. My favorite part, the best part. Now, in a regular game, in order to win, you must gain 20 lore before your opponent. Now, there are a couple ways to do this. You quest with characters to gain lore. You can gain passive lore with locations, which has definitely sped up the game. Or you can challenge opposing exerted characters to stop your opponent from gaining lore in order to progress your gameplay. And then you got my least favorite one. I truly despise this way of winning, but you could deck out your opponent. I haven't seen too many decks in general in the meta as of right now where decking out your opponent is the focus, but do know that it is possible. The deck that I primarily use, my goal isn't to deck out my opponent, it is to just stall until I can get what I want on my board. But it is possible to deck out your opponent, especially if your opponent likes to draw and you're like me, you just like to stall and you have beefy cards on the field that, you know, just can't be taken out for the life of them. But yeah, you know, I don't want to think about that too much. I don't want to make this video too long, but this is an in-depth guide, so I hope I was able to provide you with what you needed to know for today's video. Definitely drop a like or subscribe, or, you know, drop a couple comments. I might do something special again. If we get this video to 30 likes, as I've stated before, for every 10 likes, I'll get a pack away to you guys, you know, one for each set. If I can get more subscribers, then maybe I'll go a little bit bigger, you know, maybe I'll go home. Well, technically I'm already home, just sitting in a chair behind the microphone. You can't see me, but do know I'm here, you know, I exist and whatnot. But till next time, tubies, later.